Today I'm going to be sharing some lesser known facts about Catherine of Aragon. Although she's a very well known figure in history, there's actually a lot of these facts that I had no clue about. I found them really interesting though, and I hope you will too. Number 1. The bond that Catherine shared with her mother Isabella was very strong, and this was evident from an early stage. As a young girl, at the age of around 3, Catherine was taken by her mother to watch bullfighting. Machado, a herald with the English party in Spain at the time, commented it was beautiful to see how the Queen, Isabella, held up her youngest daughter. 2. Although we know that Catherine, of course, had full siblings, she also had half-siblings, including a half-sister called Juana, from her father Ferdinand's extramarital liaisons with his mistresses. Catherine was said to be her father's favourite daughter, and he apparently told her, "Of all my daughters, you are the one I love best." 4. Catherine's childhood in the Spanish court was really quite nomadic in many ways. Of the 16 Christmases that she spent in Spain, 13 were in different cities. Number 5. It seems that Catherine had a sweet tooth from an early age. From around the age of 3 or 4, regular orders for quince jelly and sugar and rosewater, used to make azúcar rosado or rose honey, are to be found in the accounts of her household expenditure. 6. We know that Catherine had begun riding by the age of 6. A padded mule saddle with golden nails and silk cushions and blankets was ordered for her around this time. 7. Catherine's mother Isabella was attentive and involved in Catherine's schooling. Catherine seems to have begun learning to read and write by the age of 6 too, which is when she got her first letter case. 8. Catherine was also taught Latin by a woman teacher, Beatriz Galindo, La Latina, who also taught Isabella Latin. Erasmus later praised Catherine's learning, stating that the Queen is well instructed, not merely in comparison with her own sex, and is no less to be represented for her piety than her erudition. 9. By the age of 9, Catherine had her own chess set, and she also had her first pair of high heels or chapins by this age. Number 10. Catherine spent much time in the Infanta's chamber when she was growing up. This was a space that she shared with her sister Maria. 11. As well as paid servants, Catherine was attended by enslaved people as she grew up, with one enslaved woman appearing in the accounts of 1491. 3 lengths of woolen cloth were ordered for her. 12. 2 enslaved girls accompanied Catherine to England as part of her retinue. One, named Catalina, later became a key eyewitness in the divorce trial of Henry VIII and Catherine. Much time and money was spent on trying to track her down. 13. The year prior to Catherine's journey to England, she was given her own almoner, an Englishman named John Revels. She would later give him the gift of a mule. 14. The bond between Catherine and her mother clearly carried on into her later childhood and is further evidenced in the fact that Isabella delayed Catherine's departure to England several times. 15. Perhaps puzzlingly, it seems no attempt was made to teach Catherine English before her departure to marry into the Tudor dynasty, though Elizabeth of York did suggest that she learn French and begin drinking wine before coming to England. Number 16. When Catherine did embark on the sea journey to England, it was very stormy. It took several attempts of setting off to actually get there. 17. On Catherine's arrival in England, Henry VII entreated her to consider him and Elizabeth of York as her parents, stating, "It may please you to regard henceforward as your good and loving father as familiarly as you would do the King and Queen your parents." 18. Henry VII would commit something of a faux pas against Catherine in Castilian custom. He demanded to see her before her wedding to his son Arthur. Despite this impertinence, Catherine received him gratefully in one of her outer chambers at Dogmersfield where she was staying. Although there were some language barriers, the meeting was an overall success with, quote, goodly words spoken in both languages. 19. Catherine and Arthur actually wrote formulaic love letters to one another before their wedding. Though Arthur's were arguably more formal, Catherine at points boldly declared that hers were, quote, from my own hand. Number 20. Arthur and Catherine did actually meet before their official wedding. This was after Catherine and Henry VII had met. Catherine later threw an impromptu party that evening, and although the couple didn't dance together, Arthur was said to dance right pleasant and honourably. 21. Catherine's first official meeting with her future second husband, Henry VIII, was at her official entry into London on the 12th of November 1501. 22. Catherine's arrival into London was a great success. Thomas More commented, quote, "Ah, but the lady, take my word for it. She thrilled the hearts of everyone. She possesses all those qualities that make for beauty in a very charming young girl." Number 23. Catherine and Arthur matched outfits on their wedding day, with both wearing white satin. 24. Though Catherine is often remembered for being older than her second husband, Arthur's brother Henry VIII, she was also a little older than Arthur. Whilst Catherine was born in December 1485, Arthur was born in September 1486. Number 25. Catherine felt sad and pensive at the departure of many in her Spanish retinue after her wedding. As an antidote to this, Henry VII showed her his new library at Richmond and also presented her with dazzling jewels from a Flemish jeweller. This was in order to, quote, "increase gladness, mitigate sorrow, refresh and comfort the spirits," end quote. The jewels were displayed for Catherine and she was invited to choose a favourite to keep. 26. Catherine's long-term friendship with Margaret Pole began during her stay at Ludlow as a newlywed with Arthur, from December 1501 to his death in April 1502. The Poles believed that Catherine felt guilt at the execution of Margaret's brother, the Earl of Warwick. Quote, "She felt very much bound to recompense and require us for the detriment we had received on her account." Number 27. When Arthur fell ill with the sickness that would claim his life in April 1502, Catherine also fell ill and was really quite sick. She did, of course, recover though. 28. Catherine enjoyed loyal friends and meaningful friendships with her ladies. When Catherine moved back to London after the death of Arthur, her favourite lady-in-waiting, Maria de Rojas, would sleep in bed with her at Durham House in order to make her feel less lonely and despairing. 29. Catherine's health problems were commented upon early on in 1510. Quote, "Irregularity in her eating and the food which she takes makes her unwell, which is why she does not menstruate well," end quote. The Pope also issued a missive to prevent Catherine excessively fasting around this time. 30. Catherine seemed to be unwell fairly frequently in the direct aftermath of Arthur's death. Her physician commented that not until 1507 did her colour return. He thought, quote, "the only pains of which she now suffers are moral afflictions, beyond the knowledge and ability of her physician," end quote. He suggested to Catherine's father, Ferdinand, the cure of paternal solicitude. 31. There was some level of gossip and scandal around Catherine's relationship with her confessor, Fray Diego, around this time, though it is extremely unlikely there was any untoward behaviour from Catherine. Diego was known, though, to have had inappropriate relationships with women, given his status as a churchman, and it seems likely that Catherine developed a kind of reliance on his guidance and the stability he offered spiritually during this difficult time for her. 32. Catherine was appointed Spanish ambassador to England by her father in 1507. It was highly unusual for a woman to hold this position. She soon proved a wily diplomat, especially in terms of marriage negotiations between Henry VII and her recently widowed sister, Juana. Catherine wrote a secret coded letter to Ferdinand in October 1507 stating, quote, "I bait the king with the hope of marrying Doña Juana, and I flatter him and his counsellors," end quote. She also wrote to Juana of, quote, "the great affection he, Henry VII, has felt and still feels towards your Royal Highness," end quote. Even Henry VII remarked of Catherine, "You speak cleverly." 33. If it wasn't clear already, Catherine knew how to play the game of court politics. She commented, quote, "They fancy that I have no more in me than what appears outwardly," end quote, and "I dissimulate." 34. Ferdinand was so impressed with Catherine's diplomatic efforts that he promised to treat her words, quote, "as gospel." Number 35. Despite episodes of kindness, Catherine also experienced cruelty at the hands of Henry VII during her widowhood. She wrote that at one point, quote, "He said he was not bound to give my servants food, or even my own self." 36. When Catherine did marry Henry VIII after the death of his father, the ceremony itself was very small and private, especially when compared to her wedding with Arthur. The two married in one of the Queen's closets at the palace in Greenwich in June 1509. 37. Catherine's hair was actually an auburn colour rather than the dark brown or black that it's often depicted as in film and TV. It attracted much attention at her coronation with Henry VIII, with the chronicler Edward Hall commenting that it was of a very great length and beautiful and goodly to behold. 38. It seems that Catherine could hold a grudge when she wanted to. A lady of her household, Francisca de Carethes, left Catherine to marry a banker, Grimaldi, and was also an enemy of Catherine's beloved confessor, Fray Diego. When Francisca later asked Catherine for a recommendation from her, she was refused. Catherine stated, "It is true that she was my woman before she was married, but now since she cast herself away, I have no more charge of her. She is so perilous a woman that it shall be dangerous if she were employed in another court." Number 39. Although Catherine was known to be generally tolerant of Henry VIII's affairs, she was known throughout the court to be angered with his alleged involvement with Anne, sister to the Duke of Buckingham, in 1510-11. Caroth stated that afterwards almost all the court had been aware that she was vexed with the king and the king with her, and thus this storm went on between them. Number 40. After suffering a miscarriage with her first child in 1510, it was believed that Catherine remained pregnant with a surviving twin. This wasn't the case. Fray Diego spoke of how the royal physician said that Her Highness remained pregnant of another child, and it was believed. Catherine actually formally went into confinement at Greenwich to prepare for the birth of this supposed child, but of course it never happened. 41. Following on from the previous fact, it's possible that after this experience of miscarriage, Catherine actually had a phantom pregnancy. She stopped menstruating and her stomach swelled before her period returned and the swelling went down. Of this, Caroth said that sometime later the Queen stopped menstruating and her stomach started to swell, and they were then certain she was pregnant. 42. Catherine actually seems to have lied about the time of this miscarriage when writing to her father, stating that she only lost the child in May, when it was in fact late January. She had been so mortified by the, quote, failure of the pregnancy that she refused to re-emerge in public until the end of May. 43. Though we know Catherine was appointed ambassador by Ferdinand before she was queen, she actually remained in this post for most of her first year as queen too. 44. Catherine had a ship named after her and her personal emblem of the pomegranate, with Henry VIII naming this ship the Peter Pomegranate. 45. Although we often remember the bitterness of the later relationship of Henry and Catherine, they were actually very affectionate at the start of the relationship and for a long time after. At Winchester in 1512, Hernando Lopez, a member of the Spanish delegation, commented, "He, meaning Henry, embraced her and kissed her in public, treating her with care and affection." 46. In relation to the previous fact, further evidence of Henry and Catherine enjoying a romantic relationship together can be found in Juan de Lanuza, a Spanish visitor's interaction with the couple. He was delivering a letter to Catherine from her father. He commented that when she, meaning Catherine, saw that the letter came from her father, she placed it between her dress and her breast. When the King of England saw that the letter was hidden by her breast, he said that he felt jealous of the letter because it was in her breast. 47. Catherine successfully fulfilled the role of regent whilst Henry warred with France in 1513. While she won a war against the Scots, Henry gained some minor victories on the continent and likely had an affair whilst away. 48. Catherine seems to have cared deeply for her sister-in-law Margaret of Scotland and sent the girdle of Our Lady from Westminster Abbey to her when she was in confinement ready to give birth. Number 49. Henry VIII ordered a surprise Christmas Day masquerade for Catherine in 1514, which she loved. It was commented that the Queen heartily thanked the King's Grace for her goodly pastime and kissed him. And number 50. Catherine helped to establish the long-running English tradition of royal women launching navy vessels. In October 1515, she launched the Princess Mary. This was likely named after Henry VIII's youngest sister. I hope you found these facts as interesting as I did. These have all come from Giles Tremlett's fantastic biography of Catherine. I would absolutely recommend reading it if you found these interesting, or if you're just interested in the Tudor period in general, Henry VIII, or Catherine herself, of course.